Welcome back to LimQ Plus, everyone. On this channel, I'm 100%ing Breath of the Wild by a bit every day until the sequel Tears of the Kingdom comes out, which is today in 128 days. And recently, I've been getting some comments because I think there's this Twitter account, the Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom countdown account, that posts every day just an image about how many days it still is until Tears of the Kingdom. And they're like 1 day behind, right? So I say it's 128. They're probably gonna post it's 129 today. I think that's because of time zones and the way I calculated the initial days that it takes. I am definitely planning on getting the game in the Japanese e-store and playing it on the 11th at like 6 p.m. or like 5 p.m., right? That's what a lot of people are gonna do. You can look up on YouTube how to do that. It's not very difficult. And that's why I guess I'm 1 day... It's like 1 day less in my calculations. But that's basically because I'm going to be able to play it on the 11th, even though the technical release set is the 12th. And it will be the 12th in Japan at the time. But that's just for me. So just in case you were confused about that, I wanted to quickly explain it. What I want to talk about today is voice acting in Breath of the Wild. This is because you can see my game is in Japanese right now. I've recently learned the All Dungeons Extended category from a Japanese run by Keiku, who's a Japanese runner, and did a speedrun for the RTA in Japan event. And they did the run in Japanese. Now, Japanese is actually not the fastest option for the speedrun. I will briefly explain what languages change in speedrunning. The reason Keiku does the run in Japanese is because that's what he's used to. He is a Japanese runner. And I wanted to do it as well because I rarely get to enjoy the Japanese voice acting. And right now, to get the best time possible, you don't need to change your voice yet, because the world record is in Japanese. Once we want to push the time for this category down more, the fastest language for all dungeons plus DLC is actually French. And I briefly want to, first, before I rate, this is the point of today's video, I want to rank my favorite voice acting for each main character in Breath of the Wild in terms of how much I like them. I, for example, really like Japanese Daruk, but we're going to get into that. The reason different languages have different speeds in speedrunning is whenever there's a voice-acted cutscene. So it has nothing to do with the text, because a lot of people think Japanese should be very fast. There should be less text in Japanese because they basically get more information across with less like letters, aka signs, right? But that is false. The only thing that matters for speedrunning is voice-acted cutscenes. Let me give you an example of a voice-acted cutscene. The first cutscene, when you get the Sheikah Slate, Zelda talks to you, that's a voice-acted cutscene. You will save time there or lose time depending on which voice acting you've picked. In that one in particular, for example, that first cutscene there, French is very fast compared to something like English, where English loses a lot of time, like 4 seconds. I think Japanese loses just as much. All things considered, Japanese really does lose like the most amount of time out of all of the languages in pretty much every single category. But yeah, again, it has some good voice acting in some specific areas. I don't like Japanese voice acting, like all of it. Some of the voices in Japanese I'm not a big fan of, but I'll explain it in a second. Anyway, so what this does is that for different speedruns, different voice actings are the fastest. For 80%, it's French. For all dungeons, it's Italian, because you get different voice-acted cutscenes in the speedrun. For example, when you beat all of the Divine Beasts, there's a cutscene where Zelda talks to you and congratulates you for beating all of the Divine Beasts, which is why for that run, Italian makes a lot of time back there and ends up winning overall. For all shrines, and 100%, the fastest language is English. And this is actually not because of voice acting, but because of a unique tweak where some of the shrines have an introductory monk text. So if you go to the maze shrines, for example, the monk describes what you have to do in order to solve the puzzle. English actually does that in one less text box, and for every single maze shrine, you save 7 seconds in English. Russian can actually also be relatively fast because of the same instance. But then again, it really depends. Japanese is actually never the fastest for like nothing right now. But German, for example, is fastest for all main quests. Italian is fastest for all dungeons. French is fastest for 20%. And for this category that I'm currently learning and doing, all dungeons plus DLC, it's also French because of, again, unique voice-acted cutscenes. Because of this, and this is what I'm building up to, I have heard a lot of different voices in Breath of the Wild. A lot of different voice actings. Again, also, by the way, if you're confused about the gameplay, I'm just going over the 100% route, the things that I need to do and actually get all of the Koroks together. But because of this, I have listened to basically all of the voice acting that you can choose from. Other than actually, I've listened to all of the Spanish voices before. There's actually 2 Spanish voice acting versions. A Latin American one and the just Spanish one. But I've listened to pretty much all of them. And I will now tell you my favorite voice acting for each main character. Because I don't think there's a unique... Like, I could probably tell you what my favorite voice acting overall is, and maybe I'll do that at the end. But for the most part, there's no, you know, localization that's truly perfect, in my opinion. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. So let's start with Zelda. I think this is an easy one. You hear Zelda talk to you a lot when she gives you information about what your next task is, etc. And my favorite version of Zelda in this game is French. I think French Zelda does the job perfectly. She doesn't sound... I think some voice acting versions for Zelda sound a little bit too old for her supposedly being 17 or 117 if you consider the 100 years of fighting Ganon. But she's supposed to be like a 17-year-old girl. And I think, for example, in the Spanish voice acting that I've heard, she sounds quite a bit older. The Russian voice actress actually did a really good job too. And I do like the Japanese one. I think sometimes she's overacting a little bit, which I think is a problem with the entire Japanese localization. Some of them do it really convincingly, but I think sometimes it's a little bit overacted. Zelda, I still like the tone of her voice, but I think sometimes it's a little overacted. So French, I think, takes the cake for me. German, actually surprisingly good too, would probably rank that at a number 4 spot. But French, Zelda takes the cake for me. Now, it is raining, which makes this Korok an absolute nightmare. Hopefully we can somehow deal with this. I'll see how I'll do that, or hope that it stops raining. But let's move on to the champions. The 4 champions I would consider main characters, and then I will add a little bit of a bonus at the end. To me, the main characters, by the way, are the Zelda, the champions, the Descendants, aka Riju, and then 1 extra bonus at the end. Obviously, there's a little bit more voice acting technically if you consider every single character, but that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. So, champions and Descendants, since we're in Zora's Domain, let's talk about Mipha and Sidon. And for Mipha, my favorite version is actually the German one. Now, as a lot of you know, I am German, and I am not biased. Usually, I dislike German voice acting. I think a lot of the times, it's hard for me to listen to. Sometimes it's just not very convincing, but I think it has improved a lot recently, with everyone kind of learning from each other internationally. And I think the standard overall rising. And I think Breath of the Wild did an amazing job when casting the German cast. A lot of the voices are really good. And for Mipha, her German voice is actually my favorite. If you want to check it out, just type in German Mipha, you'll find it. And maybe you'll agree, maybe you'll disagree with me. Obviously, this is very much my opinion. For Sidon, I will say, I probably... The thing is, you don't listen, you don't hear him too much, right? He has like an occasional line and you hear him every once in a while in the Japanese version. But I think the Japanese Sidon is gonna actually take the cake for me. I think he reminds me a lot of this like stereotypical determined anime character. And he's just nice to listen to. Why? I literally waited for this rain to stop. Just for it to immediately continue. Wait, did it stop again? Okay, we'll take that. Now let's move over to Rito Village, where we have... Oh god. Oh, this is really bad. Oh, surely I can save it. Okay. Where we have Revali and Teba. And now this is gonna be funny, because Revali and Teba, my favorite voices for them is English. And the reason that's funny is because they're voiced by the same person. Sean Chiplock, which I actually met before. Little story, side story at the same time. And this is not biased. I think he does an amazing job in all of his voices. He also voices a character in Genshin Impact I enjoy. And has done major roles in multiple animes and video games. But I think English Revali is, if not my favorite voice in the entire game of everything, it's up there. The way he made him sound like super cocky, but at the same time kind of vulnerable. I don't know. Maybe I'm overanalyzing this, but English Revali hits just right for me. Just to explain you the story. In 2020... Wait, no, that can't be. In 2019, I was at Summer Games Done Quick. I talk about these speedrunning marathons a lot on my channel, and I was commentating the Breath of the Wild any % speedrun. And originally, there was a plan for Sean Chiplock to be the guy that, if you've ever watched GDQ, to be like, yo, we have a $50 donation from da-da-da. Sean Chiplock was supposed to do that. At the end of the day, he couldn't do it. I still don't know to this day what happened. I almost think that he may have actually had... I'm not friends with him or whatever. I don't know anything about them. And this is not... I'm not trying to start a rumor. But randomly... He couldn't do it anymore. He couldn't do the donation voice anymore. I always thought maybe Nintendo actually was involved in that and being like, yo, no, speedrunning? We don't like speedrunning. Please don't do this. But who knows, maybe not. Maybe there was just a completely different issue. I'm not going to assume everything. But when I met Sean Chiplock at the hotel there, he was very cool, very friendly, and just a cool guy. That being said, let's move on to Tabor. I think Tabor just has this cool, you know, action hero type voice in English, and I think it fits him perfectly. Again, I think for the Descendants you don't really hear them enough, and they're not really important enough to really warrant my rating, but English Tabor, which is also Sean Chiplock, does a great job, and I think that's my favorite version of Tabor. Let's move on to Gerudo Town, where it's gonna be a little bit different. So we have Urbosa and Riju in Gerudo Town, right? We have Elizabeth Maxwell as Urbosa, which is my favorite. English Urbosa is my favorite. She's also, again, has a role in Genshin Impact. I don't know. She just sounds like this cool, mature, like mommy, you know? You know, don't suss me out. You know, I'm not trying to be weird here, but that's just who she's supposed to be, you know? Yeah, this is a normal thing to say. Anyway, I really enjoy English Urbosa. I think she sells the character very well. I love listening to her. She sounds really badass. It looks like I've already gotten this Korok. Okay, I have not. So for some reason the flower is simply not loading in. Oh, there it is. English Urbosa, great. Really enjoy it. For Riju, however, I again really like the French one. I think the French Riju is what fits the most to her appearance. She sounds like a cool, like a cool, responsible young girl, but still shows, you know, in her voice. I'm overanalyzing this so much for no reason, but still shows that she, you know, is obviously young and doesn't exactly know what she's doing, but she's trying really hard to be inspired by Urbosa, and she's getting it done. I think French Riju is the one that clicks for me. But again, another Descendant that you don't hear that much, so I don't have a super strong opinion about it. French, Riju, English, Urbosa. Let's get to Goron City. And I've already teased this. Daruk, Japanese Daruk might be my favorite voice in the game, close to English Revali. It is just the... Like, if you haven't listened to it, it is just the perfect... Wait, let me see. Let me see if I have a memory including him here, maybe. No, I've done like no memories. I do have Revali, but oh. Wait, let's listen to this one, okay? It's just the perfect like JoJo cool badass anime character voice. Watch this. I mean, this is perfect. It fits him so perfectly. Like, this is how I imagine Daruk to sound. And every other voice in comparison just doesn't do it for me after this one, I'm sorry. Probably my favorite or second favorite voice in the entire video game, and definitely one of the reasons I'm currently just playing this category in Japanese, because he's so badass. That being said, Japanese Yunobo. So, okay, Japanese Yunobo is a little bit weird. I used to be a Japanese Yunobo hater, because he has this very high-pitched voice. If you've ever watched Naruto in the original voice acting, that's kind of what he sounds like, but even higher-pitched. But honestly, that makes him more adorable than in the other voices. I think in the English one, he sounds solid. Some other languages like Italian Yunobo are really hard to listen to. He's supposed to be obviously this goofy, you know, little insecure character. He has this really wholesome moment later in the story where he finally meets Daruk again. wait, not meets, but he like sees his ghost, and that's just really cute. I literally, I kind of want to cry thinking about it because it's so lovely. But I think after playing in Japanese more, Japanese Daruk is also gonna, Yunobo is also gonna be my favorite. It's the one voice that makes him a little bit more lovable than the other voices to me, where he tends to be just annoying. Keep in mind, I am very biased as a speedrunner of this game, where one of the most annoying things you ever do is you have to escort Yunobo up to the Divine Beast. This is something all of you have done if you've ever beaten Divine Beast via Rudania. But it's just it's just not very speedrun friendly. You basically have to be very slow, very careful with Yunobo. I talked about this in a previous video on this channel, why this is the worst quest in the game, and I mainly mean for speedrunning. But the Japanese one actually manages to make me dislike him less than the other voices, so yeah. Goron City goes completely to the Japanese voice acting. And with that being said, I gave you my opinion on my favorite voice acting for each of the characters, main characters in the game, with one small little extra knowledge nugget for you, and that is the old man, aka the king. If you want to hear, I need to actually open this up on YouTube to give you the full effect. The Japanese old man... no, sorry, Italian old man. What am I saying? Italian old man, Brother Wild. Okay, wait. Let me mute this so it's not too loud. Let me just show you what he sounds like in Italian. This is not a joke. This is what he actually sounds like. I mean, it's by far the best. And you can't even compete. So that's a little extra one for me that I just wanted to share with you. If you want, why not mess around with voice acting a little bit while you are waiting for Tears of the Kingdom? I know a lot of you are still doing some casual playthroughs at the moment, so it sounds like the perfect time to try out some different voice actings. Maybe you find one that you like but didn't know you would like before. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Again, I told you my favorite characters for each of the voices. Let me know yours in the comments. I would really appreciate it. Could be very cool to kind of discuss this in the comment section. But with that being said, let me grab this Light Chase Korok if I can find it, because it's very bright. So I'm literally blind. Oh wow, this was so hard to see. But eventually I did it. Yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Tears of the Kingdom, 128 days with my mouth. I'll see you again tomorrow for another video. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.